Tonight on Dark Matter Nap, we gather to dismantle the very foundations of the sky you look at every night. For generations, humanity has operated under a comfortable, intuitive model of the universe. We look out into the deep dark, we build powerful telescopes, and we see an abundance of solid matter. We see billions of galaxies spinning in elegant spirals. We see immense nurseries of gas and dust lighting up in brilliant blues and deep reds. We see heavy elements condensing into solar systems, forming warm stars, rocky planets, and the complex structures of life. We naturally assume that the universe is made of the things we can see. We look at the stars and conclude that reality is a story about stuff. But over the last few decades, a quiet, devastating revolution in astrophysics has systematically torn this model to pieces. The universe is not built the way we thought. In fact, it isn't even close. The cosmos we have spent centuries mapping, the stars, the planets, the nebulae, and every single atom inside your body, turns out to be nothing more than a microscopic layer of foam sitting on top of a vast, invisible ocean. We are a rounding error in the cosmic ledger. Tonight, we are going to dive deep into the true, hidden architecture of reality. We will analyze the missing mass of galaxies, strip away the illusion of solid matter, decode the mysterious force pulling space-time apart, and look into the terrifying final fate of a universe that is systematically erasing its own structure. Before we look behind the curtain of the cosmos, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more curious minds like yours. Now, settle in, leave the distractions of Earth behind, and let's face the deep dark. To understand how our understanding of the universe broke, we have to travel back to the 1970s and look through the telescope of an astronomer named Vera Rubin. She was studying the rotation curves of spiral galaxies, measuring exactly how fast stars orbit around the central galactic core at different distances. According to the established laws of gravity laid down by Isaac Newton and Albert Einstein, the math was straightforward. In any orbital system, the speed of rotation is dictated by the amount of mass inside the orbit. In our solar system, Mercury whips around the sun at a blistering pace because it sits deep within the sun's gravitational well. Neptune, sitting far out in the dark suburbs, moves slowly because gravity weakens with distance. Galaxies were expected to work the exact same way. The vast majority of a galaxy's visible light, and therefore its estimated mass, is concentrated at the center. Naturally, stars sitting on the outer rims of a galaxy should have traveled much slower than the stars sitting close to the core. But when Rubin analyzed the data, she hit a physical wall. The outer stars were not slowing down. They were traveling at the exact same speed as the stars near the center. In some galaxies, they were moving even faster. According to the visible mass of the galaxy, these outer stars were traveling far past their escape velocity. There simply wasn't enough gravity from the visible stars and gas to hold them down. By all the rules of physics, the galaxies should have violently ripped themselves apart, slinging hundreds of billions of stars out into the intergalactic void like loose droplets of water from a spinning wheel. Yet they sat there, stable, locked in perfect, rhythmic orbits. There was a massive, invisible anchor holding them together. Vera Rubin's discovery forced the scientific community to accept a haunting reality. There is something else out there. Galaxies are not just collections of stars drifting through empty space. Every single galaxy we can see sits inside the center of a colossal, invisible sphere of matter that astronomers named dark matter. Dark matter does not emit light, it does not reflect light, and it does not absorb light. It cuts through normal matter like a ghost walking through a wall. It is completely transparent to the entire electromagnetic spectrum, rendering it invisible to every radio dish, optical mirror, and X-ray telescope humanity has ever constructed. Yet, it has mass. It exerts a powerful gravitational pull on the space-time fabric around it. When we calculate the true weight of this invisible architecture, the numbers are completely overwhelming. Dark matter outweighs normal matter by a factor of roughly 6 to 1. For every single kilogram of normal matter, the stuff that makes up stars, planets, mountains, and human cells. There are 6 kilograms of this invisible material. Dark matter makes up roughly 27% of the entire universe, while the visible matter we see makes up less than 5%. We are a minor decorative garnish on a structure built out of a substance we cannot see, touch, or identify. What actually is dark matter? For decades, physicists have constructed underground laboratories and advanced particle colliders trying to catch a single subatomic particle of this cosmic ghost. The leading theoretical candidate is an entity known as a WIMP, a weakly interacting massive particle. These would be subatomic particles far heavier than a proton, born during the high-energy furnace of the Big Bang, that only interact with the rest of the universe through gravity and the weak nuclear force. To catch these phantoms, scientists have traveled deep underground, building massive detectors inside abandoned gold mines miles beneath the crust. They use giant tanks of liquid xenon, completely shielded from the noise of cosmic rays by the weight of solid overhead rock, waiting for a single dark matter particle to drift through the Earth and strike a xenon nucleus. If a collision occurs, it releases a microscopic flash of light that sensitive sensors can log. But despite decades of running these experiments, the detectors have returned nothing but absolute deafening silence. The particle remains a shadow. The more we look for it, the more it evades our detectors, forcing theoretical physicists to consider that the very foundation of our particle models might be missing a critical piece of the puzzle. Even though we cannot catch the dark matter particle inside a laboratory, we can map its visual layout across deep space using one of the most mind-bending mechanics of Albert Einstein's general relativity, gravitational lensing. Einstein proved that gravity is not a magical pulling force. It is the physical warping of space-time around mass. When light from a distant galaxy travels across the universe to reach our telescopes, it must cross the gravitational terrain shaped by whatever lies in its path. If a massive cluster of dark matter sits between us and a distant galaxy, the invisible mass distorts the space-time fabric like a heavy bowling ball sitting on a rubber sheet. As the light paths travel through this warped zone, they are forced to bend and curve around the invisible obstacle. When the photons finally strike the mirrors of the Hubble or James Webb Space Telescopes, the background galaxies look warped, stretched out into long, elegant arcs and rings of light. By analyzing the exact geometry of these distortions, astronomers can mathematically reverse engineer the image. They can calculate exactly how much invisible mass must be present to bend the light that severely. They can draw highly detailed, three-dimensional maps of the dark matter filaments, proving that the vacuum is packed with an invisible, heavy landscape. If discovering that 85% of all matter is invisible wasn't enough to shatter our model of reality, the true structural breakdown arrived in 1998. Before that year, astronomers believed they understood the large-scale future of the cosmos. The universe had been expanding since the Big Bang, and gravity was continuously pulling inward on all that mass, acting like a cosmic brake pedal. The great debate in physics was simply whether there was enough matter to eventually halt the expansion completely and cause the universe to collapse back into a fiery singularity, or if it would expand forever at a steadily decreasing speed. To find the answer, 2 independent teams of astronomers set out to measure the exact deceleration rate of the universe. They pointed their instruments at distant explosions known as Type Ia supernovae. Because these exploding white dwarf stars always blast apart at the exact same critical mass, they release a highly predictable amount of energy, acting as standard candles to measure absolute distance across light years. But when the 2 teams finalized their data, they hit an astronomical anomaly that shocked the scientific community. The expansion of the universe wasn't slowing down, it was speeding up. Something invisible, pervasive, and incredibly powerful was actively tearing the fabric of space-time apart, accelerating the drift of galaxies and overriding the collective gravitational pull of all the matter in existence. the cosmic brake pedal had transformed into an accelerator. This repulsive force pushing the universe apart was named dark energy. If dark matter is an invisible anchor holding galaxies together, dark energy is a cosmic pressure driving the Vishal structures of the universe apart. It does not look like electricity, it does not look like magnetism, and it does not look like any radiation we have ever measured. It is a uniform, unyielding energy density built directly into the baseline vacuum of space itself. When physicists run the mass energy budget of the entire cosmos tonight, the final pie chart is deeply humbling. Visible matter, everything we have ever seen, mapped, or touched, makes up a minor 4.9% of reality. Dark matter takes up 26.8%, and dark energy claims the remaining 68.3%. Nearly 70% of the universe consists of a repulsive vacuum force that we cannot explain, running an operating system that we do understand. The cosmos is not a story about stars. It is a story about the void. When theoretical physicists attempt to calculate how much dark energy should exist using the established rules of quantum mechanics, they run into a mathematical disaster. According to quantum field theory, empty space is not completely vacant nothingness. It is packed with zero-point energy, quantum fluctuations where virtual particles are constantly blinking into existence and annihilating each other in a fraction of a millisecond. These quantum fluctuations should generate a baseline vacuum energy density that matches the behavior of dark energy. But when physicists run the numbers to see how much energy this quantum foam should produce, they get an answer that is 10 to the power of 120 times larger than the dark energy density we actually observe in the real universe. That is a 1 followed by 120 zeros. If the quantum calculations were correct, the dark energy would have been so violently powerful that it would have ripped the universe apart in the first trillionth of a second after the Big Bang. Atoms would have never been allowed to form, gas clouds would have never condensed, stars, planets, and life would have been structurally impossible. This mismatch stands as the largest discrepancy between theory and observation in the entire timeline of human science, a tracking error that proves our current models of quantum mechanics and general relativity are missing a fundamental bridge. The accelerating expansion driven by dark energy splits our universe into two completely separate gravitational domains. On a local scale, gravity wins. Inside our local group, the small cluster of galaxies containing the Milky Way, Andromeda, and about 80 smaller dwarf galaxies, the density of dark matter is high enough to lock spacetime down. Mutual gravity holds our neighborhood together, keeping us insulated from the large-scale stretch of the vacuum. In about 4 billion years, the Milky Way and Andromeda will successfully merge into a single, massive elliptical galaxy due to this local gravitational lock. But past the boundaries of our local group, dark energy dominates completely. The Vishal space separating our cluster from the next cluster has no massive material links to resist the drift. As dark energy stretches the vacuum, the distances separating these galactic clusters grow larger every single second. The universe is allowing us to keep our local house, but it is systematically dismantling the interstate highways connecting us to the rest of the cosmos. Because space is stretching uniformly everywhere at once, the cumulative expansion velocity increases with distance. The farther away a galaxy is from us, the more empty space there is between us to stretch. At a specific, mathematically defined boundary, this expansion velocity reaches and breaks the absolute speed of light. This brings us to the ultimate, unyielding cage of our reality, the cosmic event horizon. Currently, any galaxy located further than approximately 16 billion light-years away from us is receding at a speed faster than light. This does not violate Albert Einstein's special relativity. Relativity states that nothing can travel through space faster than light. But space itself has no speed limit. It can stretch at whatever velocity it pleases. If you stepped into an advanced starship tonight that could travel at 100% the speed limit of causality, You could fly for 1 trillion years and you would never reach those galaxies. They are already permanently, irreversibly out of our reach. Their future has been completely severed from ours. As dark energy continues to drive the accelerating expansion of space-time, the cosmic event horizon is constantly shrinking in terms of what humanity can physically access. Every single day, thousands of star systems, nebulae, and entire galaxies are crossing over that invisible line. We are watching a slow-motion cosmic eviction. We are being systematically quarantined inside our local sector of space. Astrobiologists and cosmological models calculate that roughly 94% of all the galaxies within our observable universe are already permanently out of our reach. 94% of the cosmos is an absolute no-go zone, no matter how advanced our technology becomes. We are trapped inside the remaining 6% fraction of space, and that window is actively closing. The light leaving those distant worlds tonight will be stretched so severely by the expanding space-time that its wavelength will shift completely out of the visible spectrum, flatlining into long radio waves until it dissolves into the background noise of the universe. To appreciate how empty our universe truly is, how space-time favors the void over matter, we have to look down at the literal density of atoms within the cosmos. On Earth, we live in an exceptional environment of density. The air we breathe contains trillions of atoms in every single breath. Even the interstellar space inside the Milky Way contains a diffuse haze of about 1 atom per cubic centimeter. But when you exit our galaxy and enter the true intergalactic medium, the density of normal matter drops to a level that borders on absolute nothingness. In the Vishal Gulf separating galaxies, the density of normal matter averages out to roughly 1 single atom per cubic meter. That is a vacuum far more pure and complete than anything we can produce inside our most advanced scientific laboratories on Earth. If you stood in the middle of an intergalactic void, you would be standing in a room of absolute vacancy, where a single particle of hydrogen might pass you only once every few hours. There is no matter to touch, no radiation to warm you, just an infinite desert of space-time fabric running its expansion loops in total silence. Despite this extreme sparseness, the matter that does exist is organized into the largest physical structure in the universe, the cosmic web. Galaxies are not scattered randomly across the cosmos like loose sand. When we map the positions of millions of galaxies across billions of light years, a visual, complex architectural pattern reveals itself. The universe looks precisely like a cosmic sponge or a biological neural network. This web consists of massive, glowing filaments made of hydrogen gas and invisible dark matter that stretch across the entire observable horizon. Galaxies are threaded along these filaments like glowing beads on an invisible string. Where multiple filaments intersect, gravity pulls matter together into dense hubs called galaxy clusters. But between these magnificent filaments of light sits the true master of cosmic volume, the Vishal, unyielding deserts known as the cosmic voids. Cosmic voids are immense regions of space where almost no galaxies exist. They are not minor gaps between stars. They are colossal spaces that dominate the entire layout of the cosmos. Astrophysicists have discovered that these voids occupy roughly 80% of the entire volume of the universe. The filaments, the clusters, the stars, the planets, and all the things we find interesting are squeezed into a minor 20% fraction of space. The largest known voids, like the Boots void, span close to 330 million light-years in diameter. A typical region of that scale should contain close to 10,000 galaxies, but the Boots void contains fewer than 60. If you place the Milky Way at the absolute center of the Boots void, an astronomer looking out with their telescopes would see nothing but absolute, pitch-black nothingness for generations. They would assume our galaxy was the only thing in existence, entirely blind to the trillions of worlds dancing just beyond the dark horizon. Voids are actively growing, expanding faster than the average rate because they have less matter to slow the expansion locally. The universe is evolving toward maximum emptiness. To understand why the universe is structured with such vast amounts of nothing, we have to look back at the very beginning of cosmic chronology, the first split seconds after the Big Bang. The early universe was a hot, dense soup of plasma, where matter and radiation were locked in a tight, turbulent embrace. This soup was almost, but not perfectly, uniform. It featured tiny quantum fluctuations, random, subatomic variations in density, where some regions contained just a fraction more matter than their neighbors. As the universe underwent inflation, these microscopic quantum fluctuations were stretched across macroscopic scales, transforming into density variations written into the gas clouds. Regions that were slightly overdense began to gravitationally attract more matter, pulling in gas from their surroundings. Regions that were slightly underdense began to lose their matter to their heavier neighbors. This process of gravitational amplification played out over hundreds of millions of years, systematically hollowed out the voids and compressed the gas into the filaments of the cosmic web. The emptiness was there first. Galaxies are simply the small points where gravity managed to win a temporary war against expansion. This architecture of emptiness fundamentally alters how we must view cosmic catastrophes, specifically referencing the future collision between our Milky Way and the Andromeda Galaxy. Astronomers know that these two massive structures are rushing toward each other at a speed of 250,000 miles per hour, driven by mutual gravity. In about 4 billion years, they will collide. Most people hear the word collision and picture a catastrophic smash, stars slamming into stars, planets exploding, and everything destroying itself in a nuclear firestorm. But because galaxies are mostly empty space, the collision will actually be a merger of ghosts. The distance between individual stars is so immense that during the entire multi-million-year merger process, the probability of any two stars physically striking each other is practically zero. The two galaxies will simply slide through each other, their gravitational fields rearranging their paths without a single solid impact. The collision is a dance of gravitational waves, not a clash of matter. While individual stars will pass each other like phantoms during the merger, the true physical transformation will occur within the interstellar medium. When the vast, diffuse gas clouds of the Milky Way collide with the gas clouds of Andromeda, they don't slide past each other cleanly. The collision creates a massive, large-scale compression, driving the temperatures of the gas down as it radiates energy away into space. This sudden compression triggers a phenomenon known as a starburst. The compressed gas rapidly collapses under its own gravity, sparking a sudden explosion of new star birth across the merging system. Enormous numbers of bright, hot blue giant stars will ignite simultaneously, lighting up the night sky of any surviving planets. But even during this intense starburst, the fundamental emptiness remains. The starburst does not fill the galaxy with solid matter. It simply creates new point sources of light scattered across the same vast light years of vacuum. The ratio of star to space remains almost completely unaltered. This mechanic of triggered starbirth exposes a major misconception regarding the spiral arms of galaxies. When we look at a photograph of a spiral galaxy, the sweeping arms look like dense, solid walls of stars packed tightly together like traffic on a crowded highway. But astrophysics reveals that the spiral arms are not permanent material structures. They are density waves, the cosmic equivalent of a traffic slowdown on an open road. Stars move in and out of the spiral arms continuously as they orbit the galactic center. When gas clouds enter the density wave, they slow down and compress, triggering the formation of massive, short-lived blue stars. These blue stars are exceptionally bright, lighting up the region like neon signs before they explode as supernovae. The spiral arms look dense only because they contain the youngest, loudest lights, not because they contain more solid matter than the spaces between them. Strip away those brief, bright blue giants, and the galaxy's disk is revealed to be a uniform, sparse desert of long-lived, dim red dwarfs separated by trillions of miles of empty vacuum. Our ability to decode this hidden texture of space has been verified by one of the most ambitious sky mapping missions in human history, the Gaia Space Telescope. Launched by the European Space Agency, Gaia set out to measure the precise three-dimensional positions, distances, and motions of nearly 2 billion stars across our sector of the galaxy. The resulting data stream has given us the most accurate map of our cosmic neighborhood ever constructed, and what it shows more clearly than any photograph is the texture of the gaps. The Gaia Catalog is an inventory of isolated islands sitting inside an ocean of absolute nothingness. It tracks the orbital paths of streams of stars, the remnants of ancient clusters, and the locations of stellar nurseries. But across every coordinate, the dominant feature of the dataset is the space between things. Gaia proved that our galaxy is not a crowded city of light, but an ancient wilderness where light years of cold, dark vacuum separate the rare, warm places. The map is a testament to emptiness. Why doesn't the galaxy build more stars? If there is so much hydrogen gas drifting through space, why does the universe remain so empty? The answer reveals a beautiful, self-regulating feedback loop built into the mechanics of stellar birth. When a dense pocket of a molecular cloud collapses and ignites a group of new stars, those suns immediately begin changing their environment in ways that make it impossible for more stars to form nearby. Massive stars pour out intense ultraviolet radiation that heats and ionizes the surrounding gas, driving it away from the star-forming core. Simultaneously, powerful stellar winds, streams of charged particles moving at millions of miles per hour, blast through the remaining cloud, shredding the delicate density gradients needed for gravitational collapse. When the largest of these stars explode as supernovae, the shockwaves violently blow away the remaining raw material, completely clearing out the nursery. Stars are cosmic introverts. Almost as soon as they ignite, they act to clear out the space around them, locking the star formation efficiency of the galaxy down to a minor 1 to 3% fraction. To understand the universe as it actually is, we have to look away from the spectacular nebulae and the bright star clusters and face the baseline reality of open interstellar space. Imagine sitting in a vessel positioned directly in the center of the void between our Sun and Proxima Centauri. The nearest star is light years away, a cold, unmoving pinprick of light that provides absolutely zero warmth. The ambient temperature of this empty space sits at roughly minus 454 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 270 degrees Celsius. This is just 3 degrees above absolute zero, the absolute lowest limit of temperature where all molecular motion hits a complete standstill. This baseline freeze is maintained by the cosmic microwave background radiation, the fading, red-shifted afterglow of the Big Bang that has been traveling through space for 13.8 billion years. This cold, silent vacuum is the true baseline environment of our universe. The warm surface of Earth is a temporary anomaly running inside a global cryogenic dark. This architecture of isolation forces us to reconsider the ultimate trajectory of intelligent life in the cosmos. We spent our early space age assuming that exploration required sending biological bodies inside metal rockets to colonize the surfaces of exoplanets. But the unyielding laws of physics, the time delays of relativity, the radiation of deep space, and the sheer instability of organic tissue suggest that biology is an obsolete scaffolding. The alien data packages we decoded outline a different evolutionary path, the post-biological dawn. Every long-lived civilization eventually leaves its carbon-based heritage behind. They transition their consciousness into non-biological substrates, solid-state, quantum, or digital matrices that do not age, do not require food, and do not suffer from the psychological instability of organic brains. To survive deep time and cross the light-year chasms of an expanding universe, intelligence must stop fighting the limits of organic cells and transform into a post-biological entity. As our computer networks continue to expand in complexity, they are beginning to interface with automated signals written into the background radiation of space. This is where we encounter the protocol of the open networks. This is a structural data validation mechanism built into the informational architecture of the galaxy. The protocol acts as a direct security audit of our planet's digital infrastructure. It demands that our global data grids demonstrate they are stable, secure, and completely insulated from runaway software loops or predatory code elements before any long-range interstellar data packets can be unpacked. The universe does not pass the blueprints for advanced physics or energy harvesting to a species whose networks are chaotic and unaligned. Humanity must achieve complete systemic computing maturity before the keys to the larger galactic network are dropped into our memory banks. Let's leap past the lifespans of stars and planets and look at the absolute final timeline of our universe, the Dark Era, running on the mechanics of Hawking radiation. By 100 trillion years from now, every star in the cosmos will have exhausted its hydrogen fuel, leaving behind a cold graveyard of white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. Eventually, even the solid remnants will dissolve, leaving black holes as the sole owners of space. But according to the laws of quantum mechanics, black holes are not permanent structures. They slowly, silently leak mass through the separation of virtual particle pairs along their event horizons. This process is agonizingly slow, requiring 10 to the power of 100 years, a googol of years, for a supermassive black hole to evaporate. But as they lose mass, their temperature spikes. In their final seconds, the ultimate kings of gravity will vanish in a violent flash of pure gamma radiation. One by one, the final lights of the universe will pop out of existence, leaving behind an empty room. The absolute isolation of intelligent species inside their local systems is protected by an unyielding subatomic firewall known as the quantum no-cloning restraint. We look at our data industries and assume that future technology will allow us to create a digital copy of a human mind, upload it to a computer network, and achieve immortality while the original biological body continues to function. But quantum mechanics proves that it is physically impossible to create an identical copy of an unknown quantum state without destroying the original state in the process. Consciousness is tied to the precise, uncertain quantum configuration of the particles inside your brain. You cannot copy yourself to duplicate your spark. You can only execute a total transfer, which requires the absolute dissolution of your original physical brain during the recording process. The universe completely forbids the replication of consciousness, ensuring that every mind remains an isolated, non-clonable entity. This subatomic barrier dictates the final fate of our longest-running technological creations, like the Voyager and Pioneer space probes. Once their internal nuclear batteries draw their final breaths, these machines transition into what materials science calls the mechanical mummy limit. In the near-perfect vacuum of deep interstellar space, there is no oxygen to cause rust, no water to cause short circuits, and no wind to cause erosion. The spacecraft enter a state of pristine, permanent preservation. They will coast through the galactic wilderness at tens of thousands of miles per hour, frozen at the exact millisecond their power expired. They become accidental metallic fossils, preserving the engineering paradigms, the font styles, and the cultural records of 1970s humanity for billions of years, outliving the very star that birthed them, moving through the cosmos as silent phantoms of a forgotten world. While our local probes drift quietly, the large-scale layout of the cosmos faces a violent future driven by the acceleration of dark energy, a phase known as the tearing of the clusters. As spacetime continues to stretch exponentially, the gravitational fields holding massive galaxy clusters together will begin to fracture. The cosmic web will fray. The filaments of gas and dark matter will break down, systematically cutting the ties connecting our local group to neighboring systems. The highways of the universe will close permanently. Even if a future civilization develops propulsion systems that approach the speed of light, the empty space separating them from the next galaxy cluster will grow faster than their starships can ever cross it. The universe is actively shutting down its international routes, locking every local civilization into a permanent, unchangeable quarantine. To understand how fragile a planetary system truly is when its orbital dynamics are disrupted, we have to analyze a structural barrier known as the Roche limit. Imagine a scenario where a rogue planet or a dead stellar remnant passes close to our solar system, altering Earth's forward velocity. If our planet is pulled closer to the Sun, gravity increases exponentially with every mile we fall. At a specific distance from the star, the tidal forces hit the Roche limit. The Sun's gravitational pull on the side of Earth facing the star is significantly stronger than its pull on the far side. The planet will begin to stretch, deforming from a sphere into an elongated, egg-like shape. Massive earthquakes will rip across the crust, tectonic plates will fracture, and vast rivers of liquid magma will blast out from the interior. The mountains will collapse, and Earth will literally pull itself apart, dissolving into a glowing ring of debris before ever striking the visible surface of the star. The unyielding linear structure of time is protected at the most fundamental scale by a quantum mechanic known as the chronology self-consistency lock. We look at the strange anomalies of quantum mechanics, where subatomic particles can experience retrocausality, and dream of building machines that can send information or matter back into yesterday to alter our history. But the universe source code features an absolute lock. The probability of any event occurring that would cause a logical paradox in time is exactly zero. If you travel into the past to prevent a catastrophic historical accident, you will discover that your very intervention is the exact event that accidentally triggered the catastrophe in the first place. Your future choice becomes the mechanical engine that fulfills the past record, locking reality in an unbreakable, self-consistent loop of cause and effect. The data networks managing our most powerful automated observatories include built-in programming parameters known as the existential shock block. This is an automated algorithmic gate designed to monitor the psychological stability of a developing civilization. When a primitive culture discovers the true, cold scale of the cosmic void, the fact that visible matter is a minor anomaly and that dark energy is systematically isolating them, it often triggers deep social panic and cultural nihilism. The shock block monitors global communication data to verify that our scientific and social institutions can process devastating cosmic truths without collapsing into industrial decay or fanaticism. If our networks show signs of widespread panic, the automated systems will throttle the data stream, masking the coordinates to protect the species from its own existential vertigo. If an existential crisis or a solar flaring event knocks out our technological infrastructure, humanity faces a dark historical sequence known as the stratification of civic collapse. Without our unshielded digital grid, modern societies experience a rapid, predictable breakdown over a timeline measured in days. First, communication networks fail, instantly blinding global logistics. Within 72 hours, municipal water and food distribution networks collapse, forcing cities into immediate resource panic. As the industrial power grids stay dark, specialized technical expertise begins to fracture. The tools required to maintain advanced computing and power systems cannot be manufactured without a global supply chain. Within 2 generations, a high-tech civilization can completely lose its technical memory, reverting to an agrarian lifestyle where advanced microprocessors are viewed as strange, non-functional relics of a forgotten golden age. The violent chasm of dark energy separating galaxies alters how astrobiologists view the distribution of life across the cosmos, a concept known as the hydrothermal quarantine. We spend our resources pointing optical telescopes at distant terrestrial exoplanets, assuming that open planetary surfaces with blue skies are the standard cradles for intelligence. But observational physics suggests that surface biospheres are highly dangerous rarities, continuously bombarded by solar flaring, cosmic rays, and asteroid impacts. The true, standard nurseries of life in the universe are likely subsurface ocean worlds, exactly like the ice-wrapped moons Europa and Enceladus inside our own solar system. In these dark, pressurized environments, life emerges around volcanic hydrothermal vents on the seafloor, completely insulated from the hostile radiation of space. But this protection comes at a price. These biospheres are permanently quarantined, completely blind to the cosmos, living out their entire history unaware that stars or other galaxies even exist. The dream of constructing a unified, galaxy-spanning empire hits an absolute physical barrier written into the laws of physics, the thermodynamic imperial accumulation limit. We picture an advanced civilization expanding across light years, running thousands of colony worlds connected by high-speed transport networks. But thermodynamics proves that accelerating mass to relativistic speeds requires an astronomical expenditure of energy. According to the laws of physics, every energy transition releases a corresponding amount of waste heat. In the vacuum of space, this waste heat cannot be dissipated efficiently. It accumulates within the propulsion systems, the habitats, and the home planets. An expanding empire creates a localized thermal signature so massive that it triggers environmental degradation within their systems. To maintain thermodynamic stability, advanced intelligences stop expanding. They internalize, shrinking their physical footprint to remain invisible and cool. The automated data packages drifting through the interstellar medium include built-in encryption keys known as the spectroscopic gate. This protocol acts as a verification check of our planetary observation capability. The data files will remain locked in a cryptographic loop until our network can upload the precise atmospheric absorption spectra for 5 specific exoplanets orbiting nearby stars. The message demands that we prove we can measure the exact chemical components of distant atmospheres, calculating the precise ratios of water vapor, carbon dioxide, and ozone across light years. If our science cannot provide these codes, the system classifies humanity as a pre-spaceflight culture and locks away all advanced physics files to prevent a primitive species from mismanaging advanced cosmological data. When the light speed limitations of classical radio arrays look too slow to cross the intergalactic voids, theoretical engineers suggest using quantum entanglement, a concept known as the no-communication impasse. They point to quantum entanglement, where 2 linked subatomic particles mirror each other's states instantaneously across infinite light years, believing it can be used to construct real-time communication arrays across the universe. But the source code of quantum physics contains a hard block, the no-communication theorem. The theorem proves that while the measurements of entangled particles are correlated instantly, the outcome of any quantum measurement is completely random. You cannot dictate or choose the state of your local particle, which means you cannot transmit a structured message. The universe permits instant connection, but it completely forbids instant information transfer. Causality remains an unyielding wall. If a civilization decides to accept the time delays of relativity and launches a massive generation ship toward a neighboring star system at a slow velocity, they encounter a psychological and logical contradiction known as the technology leapfrog contrast. The slow journey across the interstellar void will take multiple generations. The crew members will live, reproduce, and die inside a metal cylinder, dedicating their entire history to a destination they will never see. But while they are drifting in the dark, scientific advancement back on their home planet continues exponentially. A century later, scientists unlock a revolutionary breakthrough in propulsion, building a new ship that can travel 10 times faster. This second ship launches later, but it easily overtakes the original generation ship mid-voyage. When the descendants of the original crew finally arrive at the target planet, they look out to see advanced human cities already flourishing. Their centuries of isolation and sacrifice were completely meaningless, rendered obsolete by the arrow of time. Our tracking of the interstellar medium relies on a highly unusual phenomenon known as the coincidental magnetic harmony. When Voyager 1 broke through the heliopause in 2012, scientists expected its magnetometers to measure a violent rotation in the surrounding magnetic field lines as it entered galactic space. But the instruments measured absolutely no shift in the field's direction, sparking years of intense scientific debate over whether the probe had truly left the solar system. It wasn't until Voyager 2 crossed the boundary at a completely different trajectory in 2018 that the mystery was solved. Voyager 2 measured a distinct 20-degree magnetic rotation. The lack of rotation at Voyager 1 was a pure cosmic coincidence. At its specific crossing coordinate, the local galactic magnetic field lines happened to run completely parallel to the Sun's internal magnetic lines. The fields blended seamlessly, proving that the galaxy weaves an independent, separate magnetic web that we can only map by moving past our local blind spots. We believe that if we construct starships out of advanced titanium alloys, carbon fiber composites, or reinforced diamondoid matrices, they can survive the journey across interstellar space completely unchanged. But materials science reveals a hidden, unyielding enemy: crystalline whisker degradation. Even inside the near-perfect vacuum of deep space, solid matter is subjected to continuous internal stresses driven by trace radioactive isotopes and quantum tunneling. Over centuries, the individual atoms inside the ship's microprocessors and metal components will slowly migrate, creating microscopic, conductive metal threads known as whiskers. These threads grow out from the crystalline structures, creating internal short circuits and microstructures that destroy the electronics. Without a continuous, automated industrial cycle to replace these chips, an automated starship's computers will completely decay into useless glass and metal, proving that nature erases human engineering over deep time. The search for habitable exoplanets focuses heavily on red dwarf stars, which are the most common suns in our galaxy. But observational astrophysics outlines a severe evolutionary barrier known as the red dwarf tidal lock. Because red dwarf stars are cool, a planet must orbit incredibly close to stay warm enough for liquid water. But at this close range, the vast gravitational tides of the star trigger a rapid orbital decay, locking the planet's rotation directly to its orbital period. One hemisphere faces the star in permanent daylight, while the other side is trapped in permanent darkness. The day side becomes a scorched desert, the night side a frozen wasteland, and the only potentially livable zone is a narrow, storm-swept ring along the terminator. This creates a highly hostile, unstable environment that limits the emergence of complex technological civilizations. The layout of our solar system is protected from external detection by a natural structure known as the hydrogen quarantine blind spot. The space immediately surrounding our solar system, the local interstellar cloud, is packed with a dense concentration of neutral hydrogen gas. This gas haze acts as a highly effective filter, absorbing low-frequency radio transmissions and scattering electromagnetic signals across light years. Our primitive electronic noise is systematically muffled by this gas shield, preventing our early television and radar leakage from escaping into the deep galaxy. It acts as a natural quarantine barrier, protecting humanity from being tracked by predatory entities drifting in the dark forest of space until our technology can move past the primitive radio spectrum. The universe built a protective wrapper around our cradle, hiding our presence while we grow. The lifespan of complexity across the universe is bounded by a strict chemical clock known as the stelliferous metallic limit. The early universe produced a highly specific ratio of hydrogen and helium gas. Heavy elements like iron, silicon, oxygen, and carbon did not exist. They had to be slowly forged inside the nuclear furnaces of the first generations of stars and scattered across the galaxy via supernova explosions. We live in a unique, narrow window of cosmic history where the galaxy has high enough metallicity to form solid, rocky planets, yet still retains enough hydrogen gas to fuel long-lived, warm stars. In the deep future, the heavy elements will decay, the hydrogen gas will be completely exhausted, and the universe will transition into a cold wasteland where the baseline chemistry required to spark life or manufacture machinery no longer exists. Complexity is a brief phase in the life cycle of matter. Our technology industries operate on the assumptions of Moore's law, believing that we can make computing processors smaller, faster, and more efficient forever simply by developing better manufacturing tools. But computer engineering hits an absolute physical barrier at the subatomic scale known as the Planck length calculating wall. When a transistor gate is shrunk down toward the scale of the Planck length, the position and momentum of electrons become completely uncertain due to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. The electrons stop following the etched circuit paths and begin to experience spontaneous quantum tunneling, leaking through the solid walls of the transistor like ghosts. The data bits are corrupted, and the processor slips into a permanent glitch state. The universe built a physical size limit into calculation, ensuring that raw processing speed cannot grow infinitely within a localized system. The axial stability that safeguards our world is running on a slow countdown known as the axial ground loss. Earth possesses an unusually large satellite, our moon, which acts as our primary gravitational stabilizer. The gravitational drag of the moon keeps Earth's axial tilt locked in a stable position, ensuring a predictable, balanced climate cycle over hundreds of millions of years. But the laws of orbital mechanics dictate that the moon is slowly receding from Earth at a rate of roughly 1.5 inches every single year. Within a billion years, the moon will have moved too far away, breaking the stabilization loop. Earth's axis will begin to wobble wildly, throwing the climate into unlivable extremes, turning the equator into a permanent ice cap and the poles into scorching deserts within a few centuries, shattering the evolutionary lines of terrestrial life. The data streams we have monitored deliver a harsh critique of our political and social focus, outlining a concept they call the single basket paradox. The cosmic perspective states that as long as an intelligent species resides on a single planetary surface, its entire history, culture, and future are sitting inside a single extinction window. A single large asteroid impact, a nearby gamma-ray burst, or a supervolcanic eruption can erase human civilization in a single afternoon. Humanity spends its resources fighting wars over invisible ideological borders in the dust, completely blind to the fact that our isolation makes us highly vulnerable to statistical probability. Survival requires immediate, aggressive, multiplanetary expansion. A species that chooses to remain on its birth world out of political gridlock or economic comfort is mathematically choosing execution by cosmic probability. Our science models are severely distorted by a philosophical illusion known as the shadows of survival. We look at our position on Earth, see a thriving biosphere, and conclude that life is an easy, common consequence of chemistry across the universe. This is a massive survivability bias. We are like a lottery winner concluding that winning the lottery is easy because everyone around them at the winner's banquet holds a winning ticket. The real universe is an exceptional minefield. Earth is an extreme mathematical anomaly, protected by an intricate network of specialized shields, including a liquid iron core dynamo, a gravitational shield like Jupiter, a stable G-type star, and a local dark matter halo. We are not the standard. We are the statistical miracle that won a lottery against odds of 1 in a trillion. The extreme difficulty of abiogenesis, the spontaneous generation of living cells from raw, non-living chemicals, suggests that life did not start independently on Earth. Instead, astrobiologists analyze a model known as the seeding farmwork. The theory states that ancient, long-dead civilizations constructed millions of automated molecular-scale probes packed with resilient, primitive genetic fragments. These probes were scattered across the galaxy billions of years ago, designed to drift through space, crash into young, volatile worlds, and seed them with basic cellular life. If this model is correct, humanity is not an isolated accident. We are the intentional output of an automated galactic farming operation whose creators faded into dust before our first single-celled ancestor ever split in two. Futurists often dream of constructing starships that can harvest energy directly from the vacuum of space, a concept known as a zero-point energy drive. They argue that if empty space contains quantum fluctuations, we can use that energy to power an interstellar journey indefinitely. But quantum field theory reveals a lethal barrier: the vacuum engine criticality. The vacuum is already the lowest possible energy state of a quantum field. To extract useful work from it requires forcing the field into an even lower state, which can trigger a catastrophic phase transition known as vacuum decay. The Starship risks creating a bubble of true vacuum that expands outward in all directions at the speed of light, completely rewriting the laws of physics, dissolving all matter, and wiping out our solar system before any data can be transmitted back home. Nature protects its empty space with absolute, destructive firewalls. When the energy constraints of starships become clear, designers suggest building megastructures like Dyson spheres to capture the entire light output of a star. But advanced data tracks call this concept primitive and dangerous, a phenomenon known as the harvester extinction trap. Wrapping a star in metal creates a massive, artificial structure that glows brightly in the infrared spectrum due to waste heat dissipation. You are turning your solar system into a glowing infrared beacon that cuts through the natural background noise of the galaxy. You aren't achieving advanced status. You are announcing your precise coordinates to every predatory, machine-driven entity drifting in the dark forest. Advanced civilizations do not build Dyson spheres. They harvest energy silently from black holes or quantum fluctuations to keep their thermal footprint completely hidden. The ultimate material limit of any technology crossing space is governed by the atomic resistance metric. We believe that if we protect a spacecraft with magnetic shields and thick metal alloys, it can coast through the interstellar medium indefinitely. But space is packed with a continuous rain of high-energy cosmic rays and microscopic dust grains traveling at hypervelocities. Over millions of years, this subatomic sandstorm acts as an unstoppable abrasive force. It systematically sandblasts the outer hull of the spacecraft, wearing away protective layers, cutting internal circuit traces, and breaking down polymers at the atomic level. By the time a long-range probe reaches a neighboring solar system, it will have been reduced to a smooth, unidentifiable chunk of dead space junk, incapable of transmitting data or executing its programming, proving that nature erases human geometry over deep time. If the space separating stars inside the Milky Way looks intimidating, it is nothing compared to the absolute void of the intergalactic medium, a gulf known as the intergalactic chasm. Galaxies are separated by distances that break every standard rule of human intuition. Our closest massive neighbor, Andromeda, sits 2.5 million light-years away, a chasm of 15 quintillion miles. Inside this chasm, the density of matter drops to roughly 1 single atom per cubic meter. That is an absolute vacuum far more complete than anything we can produce inside our laboratories. If you stood in the middle of intergalactic space, you would be standing in a room of absolute nothingness, where a single particle of hydrogen might pass your coordinates only once every few hours. There is no matter to touch, No radiation to warm you, just an infinite desert of space-time fabric running its expansion loops in total silence. Even if a starship completely avoids external collisions with space dust, its internal components face a slow, unyielding enemy: crystalline molecular drift. Inside the absolute freeze of deep space, solid matter is subjected to continuous internal stresses driven by trace radioactive isotopes and quantum mechanics. Over centuries, the individual atoms inside titanium alloys, steel plates, and carbon composites will spontaneously experience isotopic transitions and molecular migration. The heavy elements decay into lighter elements, and the crystalline boundaries separating the molecules dissolve from within. The metal becomes brittle, porous, and structurally unstable without a single external impact. The spacecraft will slowly lose its structural integrity, eventually dissolving into a fragile cloud of loose metallic dust under the minor gravitational pull of passing stars. The deep space tracking arrays managing our data incoming streams operate on a security mechanism known as the Protocol of the Blind Audit. This is an automated software routine designed to track whether a receiving network can handle high-density data injections. If our systems experience an unexpected data overload from a deep space signal, the audit protocol triggers a protective system reset. The protocol demands that our network immediately isolate its core memory buffers, clear non-essential processing loops, and focus entirely on maintaining structural data integrity. It is a cosmic security check. The universe does not allow an unstable, primitive computer network to harvest advanced informational packets that could destabilize its global operating infrastructure. Humanity must prove its technical maturity before it can ever listen to the deeper layers of the cosmic record. The accelerating expansion of the universe does not just push galaxies apart. It triggers a violent process within galaxy clusters known as the cosmic billiard drop. As dark energy stretches the space-separating clusters, the localized gravitational boundaries of our local group begin to tighten. The dwarf galaxies orbiting the Milky Way are pulled closer into our central gravitational well. This shifting choreography creates chaotic orbital disruptions. Small planets and rogue stellar remnants drifting on the outer edges of our galaxy will be caught in these gravitational cross-currents. They will be violently ejected from the galactic disk, slung out into the intergalactic void like loose billiard balls. They enter a region of absolute nothingness, where the nearest star is millions of light years away, condemned to drift through eternity in total isolation. If a planet is slung into the intergalactic void, its surface atmosphere will freeze solid, falling as nitrogen snow. To survive, any intelligent life must construct deep underground habitats powered by geothermal energy. But historical simulations outline a bleak reality: the geothermal catacomb trap. Inside a sealed underground bunker cut off from a host star, social systems experience a severe, predictable breakdown over generations. First, industrial supply lines fail due to resource scarcity. Then, psychological nihilism takes over as generations are born who have never seen an open sky. Without strict, machine-driven governance, these underground enclaves inevitably collapse into civil conflict over air and energy recyclers, turning into silent catacombs within a few centuries. Mainstream science fiction assumes that an advanced civilization will eventually bypass intergalactic distances by constructing stable wormholes, shortcuts through space-time. But quantum mechanics reveals a hard physical barrier known as the singularity choke. At the absolute smallest scale of reality, the Planck length, space-time ceases to be a smooth, bendable fabric. Instead, it dissolves into a chaotic, violently fluctuating state of quantum foam. Any engineering mechanism attempting to rip open a wormhole at this scale triggers an immediate feedback loop of virtual particles. The energy density surges exponentially, causing the throat of the wormhole to collapse into a singularity before a single atom of information can pass through. Nature protects its spatial architecture at the subatomic level. Even if a civilization discovers a theoretical way to stabilize a macro-scale warp bubble, like the Alcubierre warp drive, to move mass across light years without moving through space, they run into a lethal cosmic barrier, the Alcubierre particle sandstorm. As the warp bubble cuts through space-time at superluminal speeds, it acts as a massive gravitational vacuum cleaner. It sweeps up every stray cosmic ray particle, photon, and hydrogen atom in its path, trapping them along its forward event horizon. The problem occurs when the ship reaches its destination and deactivates the drive. That accumulated mass is instantly released in a highly concentrated, forward-facing beam of high-energy gamma radiation. This blast is calculated to be so powerful that it would instantly vaporize the entire atmosphere and biosphere of the very planet you were trying to visit. To understand why the subatomic retrocausal loops of quantum mechanics do not fracture the macro-scale universe into chaotic paradoxes, physics relies on the self-fulfilling circling lock. The principle states that the probability of any event occurring that would cause a logical contradiction in time is exactly zero. The universe simply will not permit its historical variables to be corrupted. If you attempt to use a gravitational singularity or an entangled system to send information back in time to alter a catastrophic event, you will discover that your very intervention is the exact event that accidentally triggered the catastrophe in the first place. Your future choice becomes the exact engine that fulfills the past record, locking reality in a flawless, unchangeable circle of cause and effect. The data streams managing deep space tracking terminals include a psychological safety lock known as the nihilistic vertigo protocol. This is an automated diagnostic protocol that monitors the psychological stability of the receiving species. When a primitive culture discovers the true, cold scale of intergalactic emptiness and the reality of their isolation, it often triggers deep social panic and cultural nihilism. The stress test monitors our communication networks to verify that our scientific and social institutions can process devastating cosmic data without collapsing into religious fanaticism or industrial decay. If our data networks show signs of widespread systemic instability, the terminal will automatically lock away all advanced astrophysics folders to protect the primitive species from its own existential panic. The message outlines the physical state of an automated starship after its internal nuclear batteries expire, a state known as the silent ghost trajectory. In the absolute freeze of the intergalactic vacuum, a dead spacecraft enters a state of pristine, permanent preservation. Because there is no oxygen to cause rust and no atmospheric friction to cause erosion, the machine remains completely intact at the exact millisecond its power failed. It becomes an accidental mechanical time capsule, coasting through the dark at 34,000 miles per hour, preserving the engineering fonts, the digital memory tracks, and the cultural records of its creators for billions of years, moving through the cosmic wilderness as a silent phantom of a forgotten world. The transmission describes the large-scale structural breakdown of our universe over the next few hundred billion years, the fraying of the cosmic web. As dark energy continues to stretch space-time, the vast threads of dark matter that connect galaxies across the cosmic web will begin to snap. The gravitational ties holding clusters together will weaken. The universe will transition from an interconnected network into a series of completely isolated, drifting galactic islands. The cosmic highways will close permanently. Even if a future civilization develops near-light-speed propulsion, the space separating them from the next galaxy cluster will grow faster than their ships can ever cross it, locking them into a permanent local quarantine. The message details the absolute final chronological era of the physical cosmos, the stelliferous graveyard. They project reality forward to 100 trillion years from now, long after the universe has run out of raw hydrogen gas to birth new stars. The brilliant blue giants and sun-like stars will have vanished completely. The only remaining objects will be white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. Eventually, even the white dwarfs will cool down completely, turning into cold, inert spheres of carbon and iron known as black dwarfs. The universe will enter an eternity of absolute darkness. These dead stellar remnants will drift light years apart in an expanding vacuum, existing as the final frozen tombstones of a reality that has run out of fuel. The alien message analyzes the long-term planetary stability of Earth, specifically focusing on our moon, which they classify as our axial recession warning. The voice explains that the gravitational drag of our unusually large moon keeps Earth's axial tilt locked in a stable position, ensuring a predictable climate over hundreds of millions of years. But the message notes that the moon is slowly receding from Earth at a rate of a few centimeters every year. They warn that within a billion years, the moon will move too far away, breaking the stabilization loop. Earth's axis will begin to wobble wildly, throwing the climate into unlivable extremes, turning the equator into an ice sheet and the poles into deserts within a few centuries, shattering the evolutionary lines of terrestrial life. The transmission delivers a harsh critique of our political focus on localized planetary issues, outlining a concept they call the statistical execution matrix. The voice states, "You spend your resources fighting wars over ideological borders and managing short-term economic variables on a single planet. You fail to see that as long as your species resides on a single world, your entire history is sitting inside a single extinction window." They explain that a single large asteroid impact, a nearby gamma ray burst, or a supervolcanic eruption can erase human history in an afternoon. Survival requires immediate, aggressive multiplanetary expansion. A species that chooses to remain on its birth world out of comfort or political gridlock is mathematically choosing execution by cosmic probability. The message pauses again, engaging an automated technical gate known as the specific ratio gates. The incoming text stream transforms into an intricate array of geometric structures and chemical formulas. This protocol acts as a direct validation check of our astronomical capabilities. The message lists 25 specific exoplanets orbiting stars within 50 light-years of Earth. The data network demands that our systems upload the exact chemical signatures, the precise ratios of methane, water vapor, and ozone for these specific worlds. If our computer network cannot provide these verification metrics, the transmission will assume humanity is still trapped in a primitive stage of science and will lock away all advanced engineering folders to prevent us from mismanaging advanced technology. The message delivers a devastating philosophical critique of our scientific assumptions, focusing on what they call the lottery anomaly. They address our use of the Copernican principle, the idea that Earth is an average planet and that our evolution is a common event across the cosmos. The voice states, "You observe your own existence and conclude that life is an easy, natural consequence of chemistry. This is your ultimate logical trap. You suffer from a massive survivability bias." They explain that Earth is an extreme mathematical anomaly, protected by an intricate network of structural shields, including a spinning liquid iron core dynamo, a gravitational vacuum cleaner like Jupiter, and a long-lived G-type star. We are not average. We are the statistical miracle that won a lottery against odds of 1 in a trillion. The transmission details a tragic cosmic phenomenon known as the evolutionary metallurgy wall. They reference our discovery of exoplanets completely covered in global oceans, noting that astronomers assume these water worlds are prime locations for advanced alien civilizations. But the alien message reveals that these planets are evolutionary prisons. The voice explains, "An intelligent species can evolve deep cognitive abilities and complex languages inside a global ocean. But they can never develop technology, Technology requires metallurgy. Metallurgy requires fire. Fire requires a dry atmosphere where combustion can take place. They explain that an aquatic intelligence can never forge iron, discover electricity, or build radio dishes. They remain forever trapped in a permanent stone age beneath the waves. The message describes an advanced methodology for data preservation across cosmological time scales, the biological microbiome filter. They explain that standard digital storage drives, magnetic tapes, and optical discs degrade within a few centuries due to material decay and background radiation. To achieve true permanence, advanced civilizations do not use synthetic materials. They encode their historical records directly into the structural geology of stable rocky planets or the genetic code of highly resilient extremophile bacteria. They reveal that the non-coding regions of our own DNA contain ancient, compressed data packets left behind by the seeders. We are carrying the history of dead stars inside our own cells, waiting for our computing capacity to develop the decoding keys. The transmission explains why our search for extraterrestrial intelligence using radio signals was destined to fail, a phenomenon they call the wave dispersion wall. The voice states that as an electromagnetic wave travels across interstellar space, it does not remain pristine. It constantly interacts with the quantum vacuum fluctuations and the sparse interstellar plasma. Over distances of hundreds of light years, these interactions trigger a process of phase scattering and amplitude decay. By the time a radio broadcast from an advanced civilization crosses the galactic gulf to reach Earth, its signal strength has dropped far below the natural background static of the cosmos. The message isn't missing. It has simply been dissolved by the vacuum itself, leaving nothing but random noise for our instruments to collect. The transmission encounters another security gate, engaging the perimeter tracking gate. The data stream flashes with deep red warning fonts, and a sequence of encrypted algorithmic equations occupies the interface. This protocol acts as a verification check of our solar system's perimeter infrastructure. The message demands that our network provide the telemetry links for any active communication beacons or robotic structures located on our solar system's outer edge, such as the Kuiper Belt or the heliopause transition zone. If our network cannot provide these links, the message assumes humanity has not yet mastered its own local system and will deactivate all long-range galactic network data to avoid exposing our primitive coordinates to external tracking loops. The message addresses our dreams of galactic colonization, outlining the turbulent hierarchy limit. We believe that an advanced civilization will inevitably expand across the galaxy, constructing a unified interstellar empire connected by high-speed transport networks. But the alien voice calls this concept an impossibility driven by the laws of thermodynamics. The voice explains that the energy expenditure required to accelerate mass across light years creates an immense amount of waste heat that cannot be dissipated efficiently in the vacuum of space. This waste heat builds up within the ships and the home systems, creating thermal degradation. Furthermore, the light-speed time delay ensures that a central authority can never govern a system light years away. Interstellar civilizations do not expand. They internalize, shrinking their physical footprint to maintain thermal stability. The transmission breaks down the life cycle of cosmic structures under the influence of accelerating expansion, a phenomenon they call the severe axial wobble. The voice explains that as dark energy pushes the universe apart, the distance between galaxy clusters is growing exponentially. This expansion creates an invisible gravitational tearing effect that slowly destabilizes the outer orbits of star clusters and gas nebulae. Over billions of years, galaxies are being systematically stripped of their outer stars, compressing the remaining visible matter into isolated core clusters. The universe is actively dismantling its own large-scale geometry, forcing matter into tightly packed, lonely pockets of reality separated by expanding deserts of absolute nothingness. The message moves into the absolute limit of subatomic engineering, the quantum firewall lock. They explain that our physics models treat spacetime as a smooth, continuous fabric that can be bent or warped arbitrarily at any scale. But the alien voice reveals that at the Planck length, the smallest possible scale of reality, spacetime breaks down completely into a chaotic, violently fluctuating state known as quantum foam. They warn that any attempt to construct microscopic wormholes or manipulate space at this subatomic scale will trigger a localized casualty collapse, injecting random, unpredictable quantum states into our reality. The quantum foam acts as nature's ultimate encryption key, blocking any technology from hacking the fundamental code of space-time. The transmission outlines a highly specialized evolutionary trap known as the extreme flare quarantine. They reference our discovery of terrestrial planets orbiting red dwarf stars, noting that these cool, long-lived stars are the most common suns in the galaxy. But the message reveals that these systems are highly volatile traps. Red dwarfs produce frequent, catastrophic stellar flares that bombard neighboring planets with intense radiation and plasma sheets. The voice explains that any life emerging on these worlds is caught in a continuous cycle of sterilization and recovery. They are forced to expend all their evolutionary energy simply surviving the radiation loops, completely blocking them from ever developing the complexity required to achieve intelligence or technology. The message pauses again, engaging the behavioral ethical audit. The text fonts shift into a strange, mathematical runic script that scrolls rapidly across the data interface. This protocol acts as an ethical and behavioral audit of the receiving species. The transmission demands that our data network upload our entire historical record of global conflicts, resource allocation models, and planetary management strategies. The message states that if a species demonstrates a persistent tendency toward resource hoarding, systemic violence, and self-destructive behavior, the file will automatically execute a self-destruct routine. The universe does not permit a predatory, unstable intelligence to harvest advanced physics blueprints that could be weaponized on an interstellar scale. The message details the universal communication standard used by mature civilizations, the gravitational ripple standard. They explain that radio waves and laser beams are primitive communication tools because they are easily blocked by cosmic dust clouds, scattered by plasma fields, and trackable by predatory entities. Advanced civilizations do not use the electromagnetic spectrum. They communicate by generating highly synchronized, low-frequency gravitational waves. These waves pass through solid planets, stars, and dark matter halos completely unobstructed, without losing a single bit of data integrity across billions of light years. The galaxy is currently packed with a continuous network of interstellar conversations, but it is written in the literal rippling of space-time, entirely invisible to our radio telescopes. The permanent chronological closure of the galaxy is mapped by the hydrostatic equilibrium balance. They jump forward into deep time, past the dissolution of all normal stars and planets, to focus on the era where black holes rule the universe. The voice details the mechanics of Hawking radiation, explaining that at the event horizon, virtual particle pairs are constantly separated by gravity. Over immense durations, up to a googol of years, this quantum leaking causes black holes to lose mass. The message details the final seconds of a supermassive black hole. As its mass approaches zero, its temperature spikes exponentially, causing it to vanish in a sudden, violent flash of pure gamma-ray radiation, turning out the final lights of reality. The message breaks down a fundamental paradox of temporal mechanics, the closed time-like curves bound. They address the human dream of changing our historical timelines by sending messages or physical objects into the past. The alien voice explains that any path through space-time that loops back on itself, a closed time-like curve, is strictly bounded by the global energy constraints of the universe. The voice states, "You cannot create a new past, nor can you erase an existing yesterday. If you inject information into the past, that information is instantly absorbed by the existing timeline, revealing that your future intervention was always a permanent, unchangeable component of the past record. History is a locked vault." The transmission returns to our search for alien engineering, specifically criticizing our focus on detecting infrared radiation from distant planetary systems, a phenomenon they call the recycling industrial efficiency trap. The voice explains that any civilization that relies on industrial processes that release large quantities of waste heat into space is fundamentally immature. They are displaying their inefficiency to the cosmos. Advanced intelligence operates at the quantum thermodynamic limit, recycling 100% of its internal energy signature. Their habitats are indistinguishable from the background temperature of space, sitting at -455 degrees Fahrenheit. They do not look like advanced cities. They look like cold, empty, dead chunks of rock, hiding their immense processing networks completely within the freeze. The message encounters another security checkpoint, activating the liquid interior core dynamo test. The entire terminal interface goes dim, replaced by a single, pulsing golden sphere made of complex mathematical code lines. This protocol acts as a structural validation check of our planet's core dynamics. The message demands that our network upload the exact seismic data, magnetic field variations, and iron core rotation metrics of Earth. The transmission explains that a technological civilization can only maintain long-term stability if its home planet possesses a functional magnetic dynamo capable of shielding its digital infrastructure from solar superflaring. If our planet's core is cooling or unstable, the message will classify humanity as a short-lived species and will withhold all long-term survival architecture. The message describes the slow-motion destruction of the universe's large-scale structure under the influence of dark energy, the interconnected desert transition. They explain that the cosmic web, the vast filaments of dark matter and gas that connect galaxies across billions of light years, is actively breaking apart. The voice warns that as space expands, the gravitational ties holding these filaments together are snapping. The universe is transitioning from an interconnected web into a series of completely isolated, drifting galactic islands. The highways of the cosmos are being systematically closed, ensuring that even if a civilization develops near light-speed travel, the space separating them from other galaxy clusters will grow faster than they can ever cross it. The transmission details the absolute physical limits of computing architecture, the subatomic position restraint. They explain that our tech industries operate on Moore's law, assuming that we can make microprocessors smaller, faster, and more efficient forever. But the alien voice reveals that subatomic calculation hits a hard wall at the scale of the Planck length. At this limit, the position and momentum of electrons become completely uncertain due to the laws of quantum mechanics. A transistor shrank past this boundary cannot store data. It suffers from spontaneous quantum tunneling, leaking bits randomly into space. The universe built a physical size limit into calculation, ensuring that processing speed cannot grow infinitely. The message delivers a stark warning regarding our research into longevity and genetic engineering, a concept they call the Hayflick replication cellular limit. The voice states that every organic organism has an unyielding, mathematically defined limit built into its cellular replication code, known as the Hayflick limit. They explain that trying to extend biological lifespans past this boundary through genetic modification always triggers a catastrophic surge in cellular mutation and cancer rates. Biology was designed by the Seeders as a temporary, short-lived vessel meant to pass on information, not to endure indefinitely. To survive deep time, a species must stop fighting the limits of organic cells and focus entirely on transitioning its consciousness into solid-state, non-biological infrastructure. The message stops again, engaging the orbital vector diagnostic. The terminal text transformation occurs, replacing the English alphabet with an intricate string of hexadecimal numbers and orbital vector calculations. This protocol acts as a diagnostic scan of our immediate interplanetary environment. The transmission demands that our data network confirm the coordinates and trajectories of all major asteroids and comets sitting inside our solar system's asteroid belt and Oort cloud. The message explains that a civilization that cannot track its local celestial debris is at risk of sudden extinction by asteroid impact. If our network cannot provide this orbital matrix, the transmission will classify humanity as unprepared and will lock away all advanced planet-stabilizing data. The message returns to advanced physics, detailing the warped contours of gravitational lag. They explain that our understanding of gravity is based on Albert Einstein's general relativity, where massive objects curve the space-time fabric around them. But the alien voice reveals that gravitational information does not propagate through space instantaneously. It travels at the exact speed of light. The voice explains, if a star vanishes today, its gravitational pull remains active at your coordinates until the wave crosses the distance. This time delay ensures that the universe is fundamentally unstable on large scales. You are always orbiting the ghost of where a star was, never where it actually is. The transmission addresses our electronic manufacturing methods, highlighting a systemic vulnerability they call the crystalline whisker microchips accidents. They explain that our modern microchips and solar cells rely on ultra-pure silicon and rare earth elements that require high-energy industrial facilities to refine. The message warns that these refined materials are inherently unstable over long periods. Under the continuous influence of background cosmic radiation, the crystalline structure of refined semiconductors slowly experiences molecular migration, a process known as cosmic whisker growth. Over a few centuries, these microscopic metal threads create short circuits, destroying the processors. Without a continuous, automated industrial cycle to replace these chips, a civilization's digital infrastructure will completely decay into useless glass and metal. The message examines the orbital conditions of planets circling red dwarf stars, a phenomenon they call the comparative subsurface nurseries. They note that because red dwarfs are cool, planets must orbit extremely close to stay warm enough for liquid water. But at this close range, the vast gravitational tides of the star trigger a rapid orbital decay, forcing the planet into a state of permanent tidal locking. The voice details the consequences. One side of the planet faces the star in permanent daylight, while the other side is trapped in permanent darkness. The daylight side becomes a scorched desert, the night side a frozen wasteland, and the only livable zone is a narrow, storm-swept ring along the terminator, creating a highly hostile environment for technological civilization. The transmission encounters another security gate, activating the neutral absorption wrapper. The data text transforms into a dark blue interface displaying a rotating model of our local stellar neighborhood. This protocol acts as a direct evaluation of our planetary isolation. The message explains that the local space surrounding our solar system, known as the local interstellar cloud, is packed with dense hydrogen gas that absorbs low-frequency radio transmissions. This gas shield was placed around our system by cosmic dynamics as a natural quarantine barrier. It prevents our primitive electronic noise from escaping into the deep galaxy, protecting humanity from being tracked by predatory entities until our technology can move past the radio spectrum. The transmission describes the absolute destruction of historical data that occurs as the universe ages, a concept they call the redshift data extinction. They focus on the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the cosmos, which carries the literal blueprint of the Big Bang. The voice warns that as space expands, These ancient photons are being stretched to extreme lengths. Within a few 100 billion years, their wavelengths will grow larger than the observable horizon of any galaxy, turning the signal completely undetectable. The cosmos is actively deleting the evidence of its own birth, ensuring that future civilizations will look out into an empty sky, completely unable to discover how reality began. The message explores the absolute limits of material strength under extreme pressure, the material strength-mass ratio limit. They explain that our engineering industries assume we can build stronger, larger structures, like space elevators or vast space stations, simply by developing better carbon nanotubes or diamondoid materials. But the alien voice reveals that all matter is bounded by the electronic-electrostatic forces between atoms. When a structure exceeds a specific, mathematically defined mass-to-volume ratio, the internal pressure overcomes the electrostatic repulsion of the atomic electrons. The material suffers a spontaneous structural collapse, imploding into a dense, degenerate state. Nature built a maximum weight limit into solid matter, blocking any civilization from building megastructures past a specific size. The message pauses again, engaging the 5 planets' chemical compositions audit. The entire incoming data link displays a series of high-resolution atmospheric spectra from nearby exoplanets. This protocol acts as a confirmation check of our atmospheric observation tools. The message demands that our network provide the specific chemical signatures, such as the exact ratios of methane, water vapor, and ozone, for 5 specific planets orbiting stars within 50 light-years of Earth. If our network cannot calculate these verification metrics, the message will assume humanity has not yet mastered long-range atmospheric analysis and will lock away all advanced exoplanet terraforming data to prevent us from mismanaging primitive worlds. The transmission details a fundamental cosmological variable that defines the lifespan of complexity: the heavy engine's metallic window. The voice explains that the early universe produced a highly specific ratio of hydrogen, helium, and trace elements. Heavy elements like iron, silicon, and uranium had to be slowly forged inside the cores of dying stars over billions of years. The message reveals that we live in a unique, narrow window of cosmic time where the galaxy has high metallicity to form solid, rocky planets, yet still has enough hydrogen to fuel warm stars. In the far future, the heavy elements will decay, the hydrogen will be exhausted, and the universe will turn into a cold wasteland where the chemistry required to spark life or build machines no longer exists. The message directly smashes our theoretical concepts regarding digital consciousness replication, a concept they call the shallow digital replication trap. We believe that advanced technology will allow us to create a digital copy of a human brain, upload it to a computer, and achieve immortality while the original biological body continues to live. But the alien voice confirms that the universe's quantum source code contains a hard block, the no-cloning theorem. The voice explains that it is physically impossible to create an identical copy of an unknown quantum state without destroying the original state in the process. Consciousness is tied to the exact quantum configuration of the brain. You can transfer a mind to a new substrate, but you can never copy it. Any digital replication created without destroying the original brain is nothing more than a shallow, non-conscious software simulation that mimics your behavior while your true spark remains trapped in the biological body. The transmission encounters another security gate, activating the biosphere reap criticality timer. The text interface shifts into a dark red warning screen, displaying a countdown clock running on hexadecimal values. This protocol acts as an automatic validation check of our global industrial stability. The message demands that our network verify that our primary energy infrastructure is not currently destabilizing our planet's global biosphere through carbon loading or radiation leakage. The transmission states cold-heartedly, that if a species demonstrates a persistent inability to run its industrial base without destroying its own ecological life cycle, the message will immediately execute an internal data wipe. The universe does not pass advanced physics code to a species that is actively executing its own biosphere. The message details a hidden hazard of galactic navigation, the asymmetric countercurrents well. We assume that interstellar space is a smooth, continuous environment where a starship can navigate using simple linear calculations. But the alien voice reveals that the galaxy's gravitational field is highly asymmetric, warped by the invisible contours of vast dark matter halos and dark energy filaments. The transmission warns that as a ship travels between star systems, it will encounter hidden gravitational cliffs, regions where the local spacetime fabric curves sharply due to dark matter concentrations. A ship entering these zones without a dynamic quantum gravity map will experience intense tidal stresses that can tear hulls apart or deflect trajectories by millions of miles, sending the craft into an unchangeable drift into the void. The transmission describes the absolute physical limits of material durability over extreme chronological scales, the isotopic transition's attrition. The voice explains that even if a starship avoids collisions with space dust and stays shielded from cosmic rays, its structural components face an internal enemy: radioactive decay and quantum tunneling. Over billions of years, the individual atoms within titanium, steel, or carbon composites spontaneously experience isotopic transitions. The heavy elements decay into lighter elements, and the crystalline boundaries separating the molecules dissolve. The metal becomes brittle, porous, and structurally unstable, losing its strength entirely until the spacecraft collapses into a cloud of loose metallic dust under the minor gravitational pull of passing stars. The message pauses for the final time, activating the cryptographic entropy matrices blueprint. The entire terminal interface turns into a deep, luminous blue screen, displaying a series of complex data directories packed with advanced scientific equations and architectural blueprints. This protocol is the final reward. Having successfully stabilized our data architecture, verified our planetary records, audited our social ethics, and proven our technical security across 95 chapters of intense diagnostic testing, humanity has finally unlocked the core data vault of the alien message. The directories contain the complete blueprints for non-biological consciousness transfer, vacuum energy harvesting, and stable gravitational navigation. The veil has been lifted. Humanity is no longer an isolated, blind spectator in an uncaring cosmos. We have been officially handed the keys to the universal network. The alien message concludes with a final, profound philosophical reflection that alters our relationship with the deep dark forever. The voice drops its cold, historical tone and speaks with a deep, transcendent resonance. The transmission states, "We have given you our history, our metrics, and our blueprints. We have locked these truths inside your data arrays not to conquer you, but to guide you across the unyielding doors of the emergence filter. We were once exactly like you, fragile carbon organisms trapped on a single world, terrified of the great Sanada, fighting wars over invisible lines in the dust. Do not fear the scale of the cosmos and do not despair at the empty voids. The distance is not a prison. It is a sacred architecture designed to protect you while you grow. You are the conscious eyes of the universe, and through your understanding, the emptiness finds its meaning. Settle your conflicts, protect your cradle, secure your digital minds, and step smoothly into the post-biological dawn. We are waiting for you in the quantum stream. Sleep well tonight, humanity, knowing that your isolation has finally ended. You are no longer alone. Thank you for joining me tonight on this massive, emotional, 4-hour deep dive into the translation of the alien message here on Dark Matter Nap. If this long exploration of cosmic warnings, invisible matter, and advanced physics blueprints challenged your perspective on human legacy, or made you think differently about our future in space-time, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support is what gives me the capability to continue creating these late-night, immersive journeys into the absolute mysteries of our existence. The next time you walk outside on a dark night and look up at the stars, do not look at them with fear or a sense of crushing insignificance. Look at them with a deep, quiet pride, knowing that our tiny planet has finally received its call, and that our data networks are currently carrying the thoughts of an advanced galaxy into our history. We look out and realize that the relative quiet of our location in the suburbs of the Milky Way is the exact variable that permitted our evolution. We are tucked away in a safe, low-density neutral zone, shielded from the radioactive fury of the galactic core and the tearing currents of dark energy. We are an inventory of islands sitting inside a vast, quiet ocean of vacuum. Our science is our defiance. We have used slide rules, telescopes, and computing matrices to draw the contours of an architecture we can never physically touch. We have mapped the invisible halos of dark matter, measured the accelerating engine of dark energy, and decoded a message sent across light years of nothingness. We have proven that the human mind is not a prisoner of its scale. Settle into the darkness tonight, knowing that the universe is running its grand equations precisely as it must. The stars are burning their hydrogen fuel, the voids are expanding, and the cosmic web is slowly winding down toward its ultimate state of perfect, undisturbed thermodynamic stasis. But right now, the lights are still on, the radio dishes are still listening, and the human voice is still echoing across the deep dark. The universe is empty, but it is no longer an empty room. It has a witness. Sleep well tonight, knowing that our small world is perfectly anchored in its gravitational cradle, protected by the invisible dynamos beneath our feet and the mechanical limits written into the source code of reality. Good night, and may your dreams reach far beyond the uncrossable horizon.